Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze, and we are so happy that you are joining us this afternoon. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 15, going on 16 novels of suspense. My current novel is One Wrong Word, which you see on the door behind me, because that's what we do. And my book coming up in September, I'm getting it from the pile here, is called All This Could Be Yours, about a debut author who makes a Faustian bargain, and now the devil wants his due. It's a metaphorical devil. You'll know it when you read it. All This Could Be Yours comes out September the 9th, but we are not here to talk about All This Could Be Yours. Today, we're here to talk about this fantastic The Unlucky Ones by Hannah Morrissey, an instant USA Today bestseller. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Welcome, Hannah, from your new home.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hank. And thank you so much for having me back on Crime Time.
Well, I am a massive, massive fan. And I just absolutely was so thrilled when Hazel, the main character of your first novel, Hello Transcriber, came back for The Unlucky Ones. And you were telling me earlier that this not only did this book instantly make the USA Today bestseller list, but your first book did as well. Tell me about that. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was saying I was not expecting to hit any lists whatsoever. I feel like as a writer, you kind of always hope for, expect nothing but hope for the best.
Yes.
And so I would have loved to hit a list, but I knew that going the fourth book, especially in a series, I was like, there's no way it's not going to hit a list. Just put it out of your mind for now. And it was actually somebody on Instagram the morning of, she reached out to me in a DM and said, USA Today bestseller list. And at the time I was dealing with a plumber at my house, and I'm and it's pouring rain outside. I'm like, oh, that's not for me. I'll get back to her later. And then I finally checked it out and I was like, what is this? And then I went online to see if I could find it online to confirm. And I actually saw Hello Transcriber first. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And then I crawled again, and then I saw The Unlucky Ones on there. And so I was like, I actually emailed my agent, and the subject line was, am I a USA Today bestseller? And I said, it appears that The Unlucky Ones is on the list, and it appears that it brought Hello Transcriber with it.
As an author, I remember so well when Hello Transcriber came out some years ago, and how instantly I thought, this woman is so talented. This book is so good. But, as an author, we never know really what's going to happen. And it's such an audacious choice to write a book, to think we can do that.
Right.
How do you feel now? Susie Baldwin says, back for part 2. We just came from Anthony Harmon. How do you feel seeing, there are all kinds of markers, but how do you feel seeing that marker of your complete success?
Yeah, I feel it certainly feels validating. I don't think there's a way that it couldn't feel validating. And my agent shared with me too, because she's like, I'm so thrilled about the USA Today list. And she's like, that isn't to say it's the only thing that matters or it's the most important thing, but she's like, it gets you in the right conversations and everything. So it just feels really validating. And, there have to be numbers behind the list. So it's you have concrete evidence that people are enjoying the books and they want more of the books. And it's just so incredible to see the word of mouth and, just people, it really just comes from people reading and reviewing and recommending the books to all their friends.
You've really touched something, I think, in your readers, especially with your storytelling abilities. Let me ask you about this. This book, and you don't have to have read Hello Transcriber to read this one. It's certainly a standalone. It's dark, but heartbreaking and chilling and twisty, a little bit romantic. Nobody does dark and twisty like you. But you're such a nice person. You're such a fun person. Do you become a different person in your mind when you're writing?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like I'm a pretty moody, melancholic writer because I set myself up for that. Those are the atmospheres that I love. I love to write those atmospheres. I love to read read in those atmospheres. And I feel I am definitely like moody and melancholic, like in my mind when I'm writing, and I listen to those kinds of soundtracks, when I write. So it just really like I write in pitch dark.
You write in pitch dark?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So this will be my writing layer. So it's normally black. I will be repainting it black this week. And I was just sharing with Hank before the show, I moved, and there's a cemetery across the river from me. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so it's an all black room, and I just hang out in the pitch dark, and I put my headphones on and I listen to really moody music, and I start at 5 a.m. So it's pretty dark until about 8 or 9.
I mean, I've heard of authors who write, Katie says, looks like add into the TBR again. Absolutely. Wasland. Writers talk about this unfiltered time when there's no outside coming in, and that sometimes that's in the morning before your brain has sort of gotten open to the day. It's like some sort of alpha state, that unfiltered state that you're in.
Yeah.
Is that what it feels like to you?
Oh my gosh, yes. I feel there's always something about stolen time. I feel like it's like stolen time. Like nobody's expecting anything from you at 5 a.m. I mean, unless they're like a psycho who's texting somebody at 5 a.m. So, and I'm more productive in the morning. Like that's when I feel like you said, like it's unfiltered and I'm just more creative. I'm more productive. And so I know my prime writing window is like 5 a.m. to 10. And then, I'll work a little bit later and then switch over to some other, non-writerly writing things like emails and social media and stuff. And then having those black walls, to me, I've shared with my family, I'm like, it's not about me just being weird and wanting to have black walls. Like it's tunnel vision. So I'm a very easily distracted person. So I know that I want to have like black walls, tunnel vision, put my headphones on, 0 distractions, right from, early in the morning when nobody's expecting anything.
I mean, it's interesting. It's like a pilot flying at night, it's dark outside and you're on your way somewhere, but you're totally focused on the thing. And that must bring your stories into sort of sharper focus for you.
Yeah. I mean, I see them very vividly. I'm not sure how you visualize them because everybody's different, but people ask, like, do you see your characters when you're writing? Do you hear their voices in your head? And like, yeah, I do.
And the depth of feeling of your characters too comes through so clearly. If you just joined us, we're talking about The Unlucky Ones, the brand new Instant USA Today bestselling novel bought from Hannah Morrissey, and we'll talk more about that in about 2 seconds. Let me just say, if you're new to A Mighty Blaze, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so pleased that you are here today. A Mighty Blaze was started 5 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic by the powerhouse duo of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us talking about books and meeting new authors and reading new books and maybe finding a new favorite novel. We welcome all of you. I see Andrew Ball and Robin Stull. So many of you are here today. When I look over here, I'm looking at the comments. Julie Brinkley, hooray. Sue Street, Catherine Holland. Sue Street says, my brain would not be awake enough to write a book at 5 a.m. I'm with you, sister. But I can write at midnight. I can write late.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's sort of my best. That's
You're a night owl.
Yeah, and I think that comes from television. When I had to work for the 11 o'clock news, my brain started revving up at 10 o'clock to be ready to be the best I could be at 11, and then your adrenaline is still up. So you never know how we're going to affect our writing. Reminding you now that we are giving away, well, we're not, Hannah is, giving away a signed copy of The Unlucky One. I'm keeping this one totally. So leave a question, leave a comment, or just general adulation for Hannah Morrissey in the comments, and we will spin the wheel of fun, as always, at the end of the show. I'm looking to see there's more people coming. Oh my goodness, Julie Gregory is here, and Julie Brinkley, and Sue Street, and Renee Herskowitz, Vicky Gregory. Hannah says, Hannah is a new author to me. Thrilled to meet you. Well, Vicky.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, go. That is fantastic. Let me quickly read you Hannah's formal bio in case you don't know her, and then we'll get to questions about the unlucky ones. Did I mention this was an Instant USA today? But I think I did. Hannah Morrissey is the author of the Black Harbor suspense series, which includes Hello Transcriber, The Widowmaker, and When I'm Dead. A 3-decade survivor of Wisconsin winters, Hannah enjoys putting her characters and readers in bone-chilling atmospheres that permeate beyond the page. Naturally, her books have carved out their own subgenre called Midwestern noir, and we will talk about that because that is so true. Between roles as a bookseller and copywriter, Hannah was inspired to write her debut novel while transcribing reports for her local police department. And there it is. Hello, transcriber. So fascinating. Hannah graduated from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, where she majored in English with an emphasis in creative writing. She grew up in a small northern town and now lives near Milwaukee. Is that still true? You just moved?
It is, yep.
Husband, 3 pugs, and a TBR pile that never seems to get any smaller. Welcome to the world of reading. Are kind of like this. The Unlucky Ones stars Hazel, who was in Hello Transcriber. Can you tell us a little bit about what happens in this book?
Yeah. So in The Unlucky Ones, it's, I always say in Black Harbor time, 8 years has passed, because that's not how much time has passed in like our real time. Because Hello Transcriber came out in 2021. The Unlucky Ones, of course, came out in 2025. But in The Unlucky Ones, 8 years has passed since we've seen hide nor hair of Hazel Greenlee, the former police transcriber. And now at this point in Black Harbor, violent crime is at an all-time high. And Nikolai Cole, who's the detective, he's the detective and we see him climb the ranks. So now he's a sergeant. So he's the sergeant of the Violent Crime Task Force. In The Unlucky Ones, he's just discovered a really gruesome crime scene, and he knows the victim. He recognizes it as Hazel's ex-husband from Hello Transcriber. And of course, he's hell-bent on getting to the bottom of what was this guy doing in this really seedy, dangerous club, and, who done it, basically. And he knows that this is potentially going to lure Hazel back to Black Harbor, and, potentially she had some connection to this. And on the other token of that, Hazel is, we're going to learn where she's been this whole time and discover her connection to this crime scene, and also what's going to happen when she and Nikolai Cole are sharing an orbit again. And if they're both motivated to find out what happened, then are they going to play so nice together this time?
Well, the conflict, the instant conflict is so gorgeous in this book. The sexual tension, the regular tension, the conflict, the fear, the balance of power is always so shifting in this book, and it is absolutely great. Sharon Bishop says, "Hooray! Whoever hasn't read it yet will love." She says, "Black Harbor rocks." That is.
Thank you, Sharon.
What was the first germ of the idea for this novel? Why did you decide to do what you did with it?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to bring Hazel back. I feel that bringing Hazel back to Black Harbor was always an inevitability. I didn't know quite how or quite when she would return, but I knew that she would at some point, or that I, would be lucky enough, no pun intended, to write enough books that I could get her to come back. But so I knew that I wanted Hazel to come back. I knew that I wanted Nikolai Cole to finally have a point of view, because throughout the series, I always say that in Black Harbor, the only character who's in every book is Black Harbor itself and Nikolai Cole. And to this point, we've never been in his head. We don't really quite know what he's thinking. So that was really interesting, and it was really exciting for me to like finally get in his head and see how he views the world and how this character views Black Harbor. And it's so starkly different, I think, from how any of the other point of view characters we've seen have, seen this dangerous crime-ridden city. I think he has more hope for it than anybody else. But yeah, and then just knowing that I wanted to bring Hazel back and put her like drop her like right smack dab in Cole's, world again. I needed for her to have a really strong connection. And what's the compelling reason for her to come back, as if that's her ex-husband in the body bag. So just really coming up with, how are we going to get him dead, and who did it, and how are we getting Hazel and Nick back together here, and let's work with it. I didn't know the ending until halfway through the book. I really wasn't sure how things were going to shake out for them.
I mean, well, let's talk about that right now, since you brought it up. I think that's so interesting because we're talking to Anthony Horowitz. Catherine says, excited to go back to Hazel. Yes, you are in the unlucky ones. You're the lucky one, as Hannah was to go back with her. Anthony Horowitz was telling us that he knows every single beat of every single bit of all of his entire story. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea.
Okay. I was like, I wish.
Only the outline. So you were saying that you don't know either.
No, Lori wants details. No, I generally have a pretty good idea. I'm not a plotter. I'm a very character-driven writer. I'm very character-driven, atmosphere-driven. So once I've created characters to a point where they're compelling enough to me that I want to write about them and drop them in this place that I'm envisioning or creating, then I'm kind of ready to go. Like, I just need, like you said, like a germ of a plot, and like, let's go and see what happens. And sometimes you end up backtracking, and, but you learn so much. Like, even I feel like when I take a wrong turn, I learn so much about the characters, or sometimes, or then I know why that can't work. Or I've always like fleshed out the novel or the story more. So to me, it's like there are no wasted words. It's just the ones that finally make it into the manuscript, and the ones that are kind of like behind the scenes. I think of it like a math problem of like, show your work. Yes. So you don't see all the work that you did, like all the words that got you to these final words, but they were there. So yeah, it's oftentimes something that a character says or thinks, and then that like, it's like that spark, like that aha moment. And I love the aha moments. I feel like by me plotting it out, I don't know that I would stick to that roadmap anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. Yeah. It's all about what someone wants and how far they'll go to get it.
Exactly.
And what decision they'll make in the moment. And the massive difference between if you have someone say yes, and then you think, well, what if they say no? What would happen then? Or what if they say yes instead of no?
Mm-hmm.
You can almost feel the book take off when your character makes the decision they would make. And you can't make that happen. It just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. So much of it for me anyway is like feeling, like what feels right, and then what feels authentic to this character. And that was something that was challenging and a little daunting, of bringing Hazel back and returning to this character who, has been gone for so long, that, I'm like, she needs to be different. She has to have grown and evolved, but she still has to maintain the integrity of that character that people connected with in book one.
Yes.
So how do you have that balance?
And that's one of the things. I mean, this is such a terrific novel. And one of the things that I think is absolutely genius about it is when that in book one, Hello Transcriber, she's a police transcriber, and she's typing what she hears of other people's stories. Mm-hmm. And now, 8 years later in Black Harbor time, she's a writer who's writing her own story. So she's no longer taking down someone else's stories. She's writing her own story. And I just almost burst into tears.
Oh.
How genius that is. Can you talk a little bit about that decision? And that's such a, she's taking control of her life is how I see it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you're such an intuitive reader, and I know that like you would definitely pick up on that, but it's so great to see sometimes when you have an intention for something and you're not sure if it like lands right. But yeah, I'm very happy about that because that was a big part of like Hazel's evolution, where she's very lost in Hello Transcriber and she's not being true to herself. And yeah, she's not living her own story. She's not really living her own life. And in the Unlucky Ones, it was very much about her like taking back control and taking ownership and being accountable, because she's not a perfect character. I think perfect characters aren't necessarily fun to read about. And so she's trying to find her way in this world where that she had so many nightmares before, like returning to that life. And that's something that I ask my characters when I write point of view characters. One of the questions I ask them are, what are you afraid of? And I realized that she was so afraid of being trapped in that life that she was trapped in before. So now she's walking right back into that life and just revisiting sort of all the horrors that she had been through. But, how is she going to perceive them now? How is she going to approach them now and handle them differently?
Now that she's a different person, will that differentness be strong enough to hold up when she comes back to Black Harbor?
Right.
I do think that one of the through lines of this novel too is about addiction, not only to drugs, but to people and to places and to habits. Can you talk about that as well and why that's fascinating to you? If that's
Oh yeah, that's something because we see addiction really hardcore in the Unlucky Ones, because part of Nikolai Cole's conflict that he's wrestling with is, he's got this high profile murder case that is personal. And it's going to dredge up some really hard things for him. But at the same time, a new drug is raising the streets of Black Harbor, and they are losing the war on drugs, and they have been for a very long time. And I just think that it's something that was really interesting to me when I worked as a police transcriber. I was just like awestruck by the drug epidemic that was raising our city, and something that you don't really know unless you're unless you're in it or living that life or like typing these reports and everything, and something that we can be so oblivious to. And so addiction has always been something really, like a really challenging, sort of poignant topic. And that's part of in the Unlucky Ones, where the way that Cole looks at Black Harbor is that maybe it's not necessarily that bad, and maybe the people here aren't necessarily that bad. They're just unlucky and they're victims of circumstance, and they're doing the best that they can, and it's really just a game of survival for everybody. But on the same token, he admits that like he and Hazel have this kind of addiction to each other, and maybe it's not necessarily for the best, and it makes them do things that they shouldn't. And so, yeah, and just even Black Harbor itself, I think it's so wild to me when readers say, I can't wait to go back to Black Harbor. And it's like, we know it's bad for us.
Well, that's addiction. That's addiction. Exactly. Yeah. And, she thinks about this specifically, that, sort of Black Harbor is saying to her, I'll never let you go. I'll never let you go. Just like drugs say to people, I'll never let you go. And you're sort of powerless.
Right.
And she has to go back, as you say, that Nikolai feels she's doing the best she can to handle a thing that she needs to handle. And the idea of this return to a place that's dangerous as a different person is one of the things that's so powerful. I mean, your theme of survival in this book, and does survival mean happiness? Do you get that too with survival, or is it just surviving?
Right. Yeah. And that was something I loved uncovering in the Unlucky Ones about, because Hazel in Hello Transcriber, I always knew. I knew she was kind of an unreliable narrator. And but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Like, even as I was writing Hello Transcriber, I'm like, I know there's things that she's not telling us, even though we're in her head, because it is first person point of view. But I felt like there's things that she's not telling the reader because she's not really processing them herself. And that's a theme of Hello Transcriber. And it comes back in the Unlucky Ones of we see what we want to see. And now in the Unlucky Ones, Cole even admits that there were things going on or ways that she was acting back then that he didn't see because he didn't want to. And with writing her perspective in the Unlucky Ones, well, and his, I realized how unreliable a narrator she was in the first book, because she's just kind of in that fog of survival and, just.
I just love hearing this because you didn't realize about Hazel, like you wrote her, it's so interesting that a character, Sue Grafton used to say this all the time, that a character can keep secrets from the author that creates them. What do you think about that?
Oh, I fully believe that the characters kind of, they do sort of take on a life of their own. I say that at the risk of sounding like a little whack, but they really do. And sometimes, like I said, it's just a feeling when you write books based on a feeling or an inkling, or what if this, or why not that? And just thinking like, she's going to say yes to this, but then you're like, why is she saying yes? And it might not occur to you for 100 pages why she said yes. But yeah, I love finding stuff out about them. Then or it's something I'm like, oh, that's why he didn't want to go in there, or
our readers and our viewers understand this. They're wonderful readers and wonderful writers. I see Deborah Press and Jennifer Gilpin is here, and Julie Brinkley. They get when we talk about that the characters, if we're lucky, have a mind of their own. You were talking about that this was your first person of Nikolai, being in Nikolai's head, Nikolai Cole. What did you learn? Were you afraid to do that, to go into his head? Were you eager to go into his head? And what did you get from that?
Yeah, I was excited. I was more eager than afraid. I was more afraid to write Hazel. And which is, I don't know if it's ironic or not. That's the character that I most closely connect with. And I think a lot of readers do too, because we are first person with her, where we're not with anybody else. But yeah, with Nikolai Cole, I was more eager to get inside of his head, give him a point of view, because I felt like he earned one. And I'm like, he's been with us through every book. And sometimes he takes more of a supporting role. But I'm like, it's like we know him, but we don't. We're not in his head. So we do get third person limited with him, but he still has a little bit of mystery. And I learned a lot about him. I learned that he's more hopeful.
Yeah.
And he has a more positive lens than I anticipated.
Yes. We see the world through his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We understand what he cares about and what he notices and what he comments on and what his past knowledge is, what he knows that maybe he hadn't revealed in the past. And I love how by getting into his head as well, you balance the relationship between the two. So it's sort of both of their stories, but it's really three stories, because Black Harbor, which I always want to call Bleak Harbor.
Same.
It's such a powerful place. Is that based on a real place or an amalgam? Where did that come from? It's such a pervasive part of the book, the setting.
When I was police transcribing, so I was a police transcriber for the city of Racine, which is just south of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And so a lot of Black Harbor is quite heavily inspired by Racine, or at least like this area, like this this area of Wisconsin where it's cold most of the year, it's dark a lot of the time, and setting that city like on the edge of like the crumbling edge of Lake Michigan, and it's much colder if you live over by Lake Michigan, so you've got this lake effect hitting you, and it's just all these elements like coming together. And I think there's a line in the book that says, if someone doesn't kill you, the elements will. And just knowing that geographically where it's located right between Chicago and Milwaukee. So a lot of the crime goes south or north, and it kind of concentrates in this smaller city where it's like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really dangerous. And I didn't know that until I became the police transcriber and was like listening to all of these reports. But I do also want it to be like in every town where I feel like almost everybody can connect with Black Harbor in the way that like I live there, or I've driven through there, or I've seen a place like that on TV. And to have that like relativity and relatability. And I think that's something that I'm really fascinated by, these cities that were like once titans of industry, and then the industry moves away, and what happens to them. And some people have nowhere else to go, and they have to stay there and try and survive, because when industry moves out, crime moves in.
And that's why they're the unlucky ones.
Right.
As Nikolai even says. And the industry that moves in is the drug trade, which is portrayed so starkly and realistically in this novel. I mean, it's sort of, that's part of the novel, and the rest of it is the mystery of who killed Hazel's ex-husband, and sort of also a love story that runs through it. So going back to the drug element, there's a drug that's sort of taking over the town. Is that a real drug?
No, I made it up. But I wanted it to feel real. So I was like, my Google search history, just looking up all of these elements of what to put it with. It was a fentanyl, carfentanil, and xylazine. And I actually spoke to a special agent his specialty is drugs, and he goes like all over the world. He was telling me about, raiding pirate ships and stuff like in the Balkan Sea. I was like, well, I'm just like thinking about Lake Michigan. I don't need to go that far out. But just the wealth of knowledge that he shared with me, and just knowing, because he was like, people think fentanyl is bad. He's like, carfentanil is 100 times worse. I'm like, what? And then I wanted xylazine in there, knowing that it's like a horse tranquilizer. But the thing is, it's not a true opiate. It's synthetic, which means that Narcan won't work against it. So that just like doubles down on the horrors of this drug. And there's one of the characters in The Unlucky One says, so you overdose, you die. And that's it. Like there's no even saving people.
That's one of the essences, though, of a Hannah Morrissey story, is that there are choices that people make that are just terrifying. And you've created this drug, and I'll let you all find out about it when you read The Unlucky Ones, which you should. That is so terrifying. And the hold of the drug on the community is so terrifying. And who's handling it is also so terrifying. And we're running out of time a little bit, but let me get to the... there's an element of romance in this, and the sexual tension is amazing. The tension is just amazing. The emotions are very close to the surface in this novel. Was that different for you to write?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I think Hello Transcriber and The Unlucky Ones definitely have more of that romantic tension thread than the other books. I do like a little side of romance with my thrillers. I think they, it just makes them a little more dynamic.
People involved. If there's not that, they're not real people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really enjoyed writing the tension between Hazel and Cole in this one. Just the whole, it was just like a whole tug of war, like the whole time. And then, I'm trying not to give spoilers, but yeah, there was a certain scene that I was very pleased that I pulled off, but Yeah, I like a little bit of spice, and
But
yeah.
it's very touching because we love Hazel. We love Hazel so much, and we love Cole so much, and we want them to survive. You know, we
Mhm,
want them to survive and be happy because they really deserve it. And you're making Nikolai Cole be hopeful and optimistic.
mhm.
It's a genius thing to do.
And also like what I loved about his point of view is like realizing his insecurities,
Hmm.
his fears, because he comes off as such a confident, sure-footed character throughout the series. And then I think we see, especially around Hazel, he has those insecurities, which is fun to play off of and like just further flesh out that character. And they're good foils for each other in that way.
Well, you have really hit it out of the ballpark with the unlucky ones. It is immersive. It is unpredictable. It's lovely. It's scary. It's tense, and it's just at the end of it, you'll just think, that was a good book. That is just how this is supposed to be. So,
Thank you.
congratulations on this. I know we have so many people here who have some questions for you. Vicky says, "Well, we recognize the scene. You're very pleased you pulled off." Yes, indeed.
I think so.
Follow Follow Hannah on Instagram. What's your Instagram name, Hannah?
It's at Hannah Morrissey Writer.
At Hannah Morrissey Writer. When you read it and when you find it, DM her and tell her
Yes.
that you found it. That would be fun. Who else has a question? Where do you get your inspiration? That's a good idea from Jennifer. Where do you get your inspiration for characters and storylines? Court cases, newspapers, or stories? Did you? Good question, Jennifer.
Gosh, I feel almost like all of the above. um, yeah, it just depends.
Do you like sometimes does something just stick? You just sort of something you read or see or learn about and you think, oh, that's a puzzle piece, and you sort of magpie that into your book?
Yeah, also it's like I'm really interested in like especially with like crime fiction, of course, looking at I love the periphery characters.
Mm.
Somebody like Hazel, she's a police transcriber, and then think about, well, what is that? How did she get here? And like what's going on in her head when she's typing these reports and kind of filling her out like that. And you know, my when I have my detectives, my law enforcement characters, I'm very methodical, I guess, and meticulous about how I want them. And I want them to be authentic more than anything. So it's just listening to my friends and my husband and like how they talk. So there's a part in The Unlucky Ones where so many people like flag it for me and say they loved it, where Nikolai Cole does not like autopsies. And he's like, and she asked the forensic pathologist asks why, and he says, because I don't need to see someone's face peeled off their face. And my husband says that because he hates autopsies. So like I will take a lot of things from my husband and give them to Nikolai Cole. And
Your husband is a special agent. He's not a guy who goes to autopsies.
Oh yeah, he's been to autopsies for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, it's his job to go.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, he doesn't just go to them. No. Yeah, so just a lot of listening to actual people and just wanting to get the verbiage right. And yeah, I mean, I think anytime you watch something on TV, it can spark something, or usually it's just, yeah, what would be interesting? Who would be interesting to write about?
Yeah, I love that. And you've really taken some parts of people's lives and some people that we may not even have recognized or been familiar with and brought them to the forefront. I've never thought about a police transcriber really before I read transcriber. So that's really, really perfect. One last question, and then we'll do the giveaway. Is it best to read the Black Harbor series? Asked Carrie. Hey, Carrie, in order. I asked because I bought the Widowmaker because I love the title, and I want to start there.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. You could totally start with the Widowmaker. So when I always say with the Black Harbor series, I kind of use the term series loosely because it's more of a universe. There are multiple entry points. So Hello Transcriber is technically the first one, and Hazel's our intro to Black Harbor and, you know, the lay of the land and everything. But you definitely don't have to start there. Like a lot of people actually started with book 3, When I'm Dead, because that was the book of the month. pick, and it got a bunch of exposure and it was awesome. And a lot of people started with book 3 and then they went back and read books 1 and 2. I do like, I'm kind of calling Hello Transcriber the prequel to The Unlucky Ones, because you can enjoy them separately. You could read The Unlucky Ones, just start here and then go back. But no, Carrie, that is a very long-winded way of saying you can absolutely start with The Widowmaker.
So, I mean, if you and I went out to lunch and I said, listen to what happened to me today, you wouldn't say, no, I've got to hear what happened to you 20 years ago first, and then I can hear what happened to you today. You can hear what happened to me today just fine, and then you can find out what happened earlier.
That's a great way of putting it.
And that makes sense. I mean, and that's real. So yes, you can go run right now and get Hannah Morrissey's The Unlucky Ones. We have time for one more question. I think Margaret has picked one more question. Let's do that. I'm intrigued by your writing in the dark with headphones. Do you transcribe? Ask Jennifer. Physically write, record? How do you do that?
I physically type, like transcribe. So for me, like writing is thinking. So I like to I type out my thoughts. Even if I'm asking myself questions, it probably looks like somebody with multiple personalities in my Word documents, because I'm always just typing questions and answers to myself. But yeah, very much come down with my cup of coffee, put on my playlist. Athena 4, like on YouTube, they have the moodiest, most ethereal music.
Athena 4, I'm writing this down.
Athena 4, and there's so many different, it's the Roman numeral 4. And oh gosh, Dead Gods is my favorite. I listen to that one all the time. But yeah, just come down in the dark, put my headphones on, have my coffee, and just go to it. I even set my computer screen on dim.
That's interesting. I mean, I sometimes dictate my books.
Yeah.
Television too. I just, I'll sit here with my eyes closed. Eyes closed and just dictate the story. And,
that's great.
And that sometimes works. I mean, that can really, then you're really the character. You really are seeing what they're seeing. So I love that everybody does it differently in a way that works for them. And it certainly does work for you, Hannah Morrissey. Congratulations on making a double USA Today bestseller list with The Unlucky Ones and with Hello Transcriber. You all do not miss this. Run, click, click, click. One of you will not have to do that unless you want to get one for a lucky friend, because we will spin the wheel of fun right now from all of you. Do you ever give the pups cameos, says Andrew?
I actually gave a former dog that Hans and I had, Rocket, a golden retriever. He is in The Unlucky Ones. That was like a little Easter egg I put in for my husband. But I don't know that, maybe someday the pugs will get cameos.
I love that. The next book, the pugs can get cameos.
Yeah.
And our winner is Shannon Hansen. Shannon, so wonderful that you won. Shannon is a good pal of Crime Time and has been here from the beginning. So that is really, really awesome. Shannon, you will love The Unlucky Ones that you will get straight from Hannah Morrissey. The rest of you, exactly. The rest of you, you know what to do. Run, click, click, click. Get in on this marvelous novel and meet Hannah, meet Hazel, and meet Black Harbor. And again, I keep calling it Bleak Harbor. Either way, it's the same. It's black, it's blue. You will absolutely love it. Hannah Morrissey, Susie says, I added The Unlucky Ones to my TV.
Thank you, Susie.
Words we love to hear. Before I let you go, very, very quickly, let me say that next week at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. ET, that's our time for the British authors. We have Adele Parks, woohoo, with First Wife's Shadow. She's absolutely astonishing. So I cannot wait for you to meet Adele Parks. That's at 3 p.m. ET next Tuesday. And at 4 p.m., Leanne Zhang's Julie Chan is Dead. Look at that cool cover. So 2 very, very different books next week at 3 and 4, and cannot wait to talk to these fantastic authors. And again, thank you so much, Hannah Morrissey, you are absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it's marvelous of you to all be here today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you will join us again next week. Until then, remember, it is always safe inside a book.